It's Saturday morning and time for the newspapers, and this time, The Sun, by request. I'm Graniopteryx. And this is the first story, Eurovision. For those of you not in Britain who don't know what the Sun newspaper is, this is referred to as a red top for obvious reasons. It's called a tabloid because that's the size of the paper. It's not like the broadsheet, the big ones. And it used to specialise on page 3 in semi-naked women, and for some reason it stopped doing that, although page 3 here has a not quite semi-naked woman. And it tends to concentrate on gossip from soap operas and that sort of thing. But it does have news as well. And somebody asked me to go through that on the Saturday, so I'll do some of it. It is surprisingly thick. And it's got a page, for instance, on gardening right next to an advert, or one or the right next to, there it is, to an advert for plants for sale. So you can see the commercial aspect of it. So and then it's got a lot of sports, and it does have a lot of stuff about media gossip that I don't know anything about. Yeah, well, there are limits to how much I can look up on the news. Okay, so the first story is Song Show Chaos Amid Gaza Protests. So the Israeli entry for the Eurovision Song Contest is being harried by pro-Palestine demonstrators. Now, some people have asked, why is Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest, seeing as Israel is not a European country? Well, there are other countries, for instance, like Morocco, that have occasionally taken part in the Eurovision Song Contest, because Eurovision is not to do with Europe itself, but with the European Broadcasting Union agreement on what constitutes a free press. So if a country has a broadcasting station that is free of government interference, there's a list of things: free of government interference, ability to criticise the government, those sorts of things that we take for granted here in the Anglosphere, and which are not being observed. For instance, I think that the Israeli broadcasters are probably a lot freer in themselves than, for instance, the BBC, which is free of government interference but censors itself. So probably Israel is one of the most qualified to be in the European Broadcasting Union organisation. Okay, so that was the first page. Second page is the news that the British economy is doing all right. Well, this is the Sun. I have read other reports that the British economy is doing all right as well. It says here, the UK economy is going gangbusters after coming out of recession with the fastest growth in 2 years, experts said last night. Well, that's fine, except how much do you trust the experts? Okay, on the same page, Sir Keir's Rwanda axe vow. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to scrap Rwanda deportations straight away, despite a poll showing voters back the scheme. Well, I'm a little ambivalent about that, because quite frankly, I don't think that the Rwanda scheme can do more than make a small but very visible difference. So it's one of those theatrical things, I think, and probably costs a lot of money for not much return. So there was a television personality called Phillip Schofield, who was well known as a nice family man, and then took much to the shock of everyone else, everyone, I suppose, except for his colleagues, he confessed to being gay, and everybody was just getting over that, and he left his wife, I believe. And then a story came out about him being involved with a young man. Now, this young man was not a minor, but he was, minor, with an O. But he was considerably younger than Phillip Schofield, and a lot of people got very hot under the collar about it. Yeah. The young man was in an inferior position to... No, maybe that's the wrong way of putting it. He was on a lower rank of employment in the television studios. And so it looked very much as if Schofield was taking advantage of his, of his power, really. So I don't really know what to say about it, because the young fellow was not a child. And although a lot of people made a fuss about that, it's just not relevant. It was just, I think, such a shock for the British public to find this nice family man not only gay, but having relations with a lowly and possibly somewhat rather naive employee. All right, here's another woman in a state of semi dress. They do a lot of double pages here. So they're saying it's hot weather, and instead of showing a BBC map showing the country on fire, they just show a hot woman instead, and that's all to the good, I think. What else? All right, so now there's another double page spread, this time about the Eurovision Song Contest. And what do they say here? So they brought that from the first page. I'm going to cut here while I find it. Okay, it's Eurovision has been plunged into crisis ahead of tonight's final, with more than 20,000 pro-Palestine protesters expected. Swedish police were braced for trouble in Malmö amid anger at the inclusion of Israeli singer Eden Golan. UK venues have also been warned not to screen the event or face a mob backlash. That's what I find most disturbing, at least from a British point of view. Pubs that would be screening the event are being told not to, just in case it causes some people to feel hurty about it. PM Rishi Sunak slammed Gaza protesters in Sweden, calling them outrageous, and calls to boycott the 68-year-old competition unfair. Well, yeah, Rishi Sunak keeps spouting the right words, but he doesn't do anything about it. The people that might be disrupting pubs screening the Eurovision, they should be arrested straight away, and that's the end of it, but they won't be. And The Sun has an article here. At a music festival last October the 7th, Hamas slaughtered... Well, they just went through it. And then they're saying how terrible these Islamist fanatics are for involving themselves in the way they do. These totalitarian censors are terrifyingly certain their actions are justified, no matter how objectively repugnant. They're on the right side of history. And then underneath it said, Mao's murderous Red Guards thought the same, and the Nazis before them. Well, I can't argue with that. I'm sure I have some viewers who can. Right, now here's Billie Piper. My God, lady, what have you done to your face? How sad. Okay, what's next? Oh gosh, vape, rape, peril. Rapists are using spiked vapes in a new threat to revellers. So it's not just drinks now. Sex offenders have laced cartridges with drugs such as spice. Oh, spice is dreadful. Which can leave victims incapacitated. Okay, reason not to vape, I suppose. This is a picture of the couple we love to hate, Harry and Meghan in Nigeria. That struck me as amusing. There was a news clip, I think it must have been in the Telegraph, showing Meghan, and underneath the caption said, "I feel right at home in Nigeria." And I thought, yeah, well, Nigeria's full of fake royals, isn't it? Just watch out if you get an unsolicited email. So here's an article by Jeremy Clarkson. Flying is terminally boring, so I'll stay here this summer. I don't like flying. I don't like being herded around. I don't like being in an aeroplane, being forced to breathe that plastic air they pump at you. I don't like all the delays and the questions and the inspections and the turnout of stuff. Mind you, I have heard that they have now, many of the larger airports have scanning machines that look for explosives, so you don't need to turn out, throw away your bottles anymore. But that's only in the bigger airports. And there's a little article here. Oh, it's probably what Jeremy Clarkson said. I Vlad it with Seagal. Okay, so there's a little bit there about, where is it? It's there we are, about Steven Seagal. One of my favourite scenes in any movie is the moment in Executive Decision where quite early on Steven Seagal is attempting to climb into the belly of an airliner so he can rush about hitting people and being a hero, and he falls to his death. Gosh. I've never liked the man, and that view wasn't changed this week when he turned up in Russia with the stupidest hair I've ever seen. Yeah, do you know what? I'll see if I can find this online, but he looks like Ming the Merciless, doesn't he? I think that must be the picture I have in my mind, must be the Ming the Merciless from the old Buster Crabbe films. No, I didn't see them when they first went out. Anyway, I've never liked the man, stupidest hair I've ever seen, to fawn at the feet of Vladimir Putin. Seagal says they bonded over a shared love of martial arts, but that's no excuse. I like watercolour paintings, but that doesn't mean I'd go to an exhibition of Hitler's offerings. Right, Jeremy Clarkson is very witty. Now, there's a nice thing down here. The impossibly good-looking actor Nicholas Galitzine, who stars in hit show The Idea of You. I don't know anything about this show. The Idea of You, says he sometimes feels like a cut of beef at a market and that he doesn't want to be defined by his looks. So just look at this guy here. He doesn't want to be defined by his looks. Yeah, pull the other one. All right, next. Top NATO generals last night hit back at warmongering Vladimir Putin by staging one of the biggest training exercises since the Cold War. And then underneath some very good news, which is just a very small thing here, But it says here, child rapists will automatically lose the right to have a say in their children's lives under new laws. Now, I remember a dreadful case, and it was one of those Rotherham things where a girl got pregnant to her rapist, and then the social services insisted on the man's insistence that he be allowed regularly to see the child that he'd imposed on this girl. And she could do nothing about it. The social services were, and the law were all against it. It was his child and he had the right, so he kept taking the child. I don't know whether, and you know, of course, that poor one, it's just a method of torture, because when he takes the child, that woman doesn't know whether he'll ever bring it back or whether it'll disappear to Pakistan suddenly, you know, and it's a dreadful case and nothing was done about it. I don't know what happened to that poor girl. I just heard about that case. She went to court to try and stop him, and all the social services stood up in court and said, well, the man has a right to his child. Disgraceful. I don't know what happened after that. But now they're doing a law that would stop that, and good. All right, now, Echo Priest, 82, and retired teacher, pal, they say, 85, try to smash the Magna Carta case. So here's the glass case that the Magna Carta is in, and they've gone there with tools that are calculated to smash reinforced glass, hammers and chisels or whatever. A glass cutting, there's quite a respectable looking chisel there. All in the name of Just Stop Oil. A priest and a retired teacher, both in their 80s, tried to smash the case holding the Magna Carta yesterday in a Just Stop Oil stunt. I'd say that was a case for some serious psychiatric care for these two old ladies. Now, here we have Son's Georgette tries doing chores in Star's Met Gala concert. Corset. So, of course, the Sun never misses a chance to show a nubile young woman in a state of undress of various sorts. So she's wearing this corset. Here it is. And here's the other page. I want to tell you, I hadn't calculated on this. These double pages are a real nuisance. So they're getting her to do stuff when she's in the corset. And I can tell you absolutely, having worn a corset for horse riding, when you ride side saddle, you wear a corset. I have this proper Victorian type corset, which I wear for such rides, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely marvellous. It protects your back. I don't know, it might be a bit tight on her, but she might already have a small waist, so I can't tell. And she says, each painful pull leaves me breathless. Well, yes, she was probably overlaced. But I was wearing my Victorian. It was for a dress-up sort of parade. And I was wearing a mid-Victorian dress, well, top and skirt, but, you know, the outfit. With you have to have a corset under it because you can't get the right shape without that. I had to sit in a chair for a while before I got to my horse. And I didn't, normally, when I'm sitting in chairs, I sit back or slump or whatever. In that corset, I was just sat bolt upright, leaning against the corset. It was very good. I thought it was very, very useful. And a lot of Victorian servants, the women, they wore corsets every day, and they heaved coal, from the cellar to the fireplaces, up flights of stairs and whatever. And I think without those corsets, they wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have had serious damage to their backs. Okay. Here, it says here, be warned everyone, cancer's risk rises in obese. Being overweight could be a factor in 4 out of 10 cancers, a study says. Yeah, well, being obese doesn't do you much good all the way round. Okay, so there's a little article here headed, "I missed footy," that's football, "for sex with teacher. A teen boy who got his teacher pregnant first had sex with her after he sold his ticket for a Manchester United match," a court heard. The lad, referred to as Boy B, also said that he blurted, "What the F?" when Rebecca Joins told him she was pregnant. Oh, for goodness sake. How can that woman... I mean, definitely old enough to know how to stop that sort of thing happening, isn't she? Apart from the messing around with a teenage boy. I believe there's probably something wrong with her. And there's a little article here for a newborn baby who got whooping cough. Apparently people are so worried they're not taking the vaccination. And now there's a bit of an epidemic going on. And it says here, a mum has warned of the rise in whooping cough cases after her newborn daughter spent 10 days in a coma. 1-month-old Polly D was put on a ventilator after turning blue, but is now awake and breathing for herself. Yeah, thank goodness. That's terrible. Right, there was a man who weighed, I don't know how much, 50 stone. And his organs just shut down. There wasn't time for cancer to get hold of him. His organs shut down. And he was given a funeral recently, and they wanted to cremate him. So they had to search for a cremation facility that could handle that sort of a bulk. That man had a very sad life. I'm sorry for him. But I think maybe there should have been some intervention a bit earlier. All right, and then on page 32 and 33, another double-page spread, all about the Trump case. Well, we see lots of that in the newspapers. There's been quite a lot of salacious detail going on. Now, stone me, it says here. Stone me being an expression of surprise in Britain, something rather old-fashioned now. And it says here, a punnet of cherries costs £83. Apparently Harrods, we've all heard of Harrods, haven't we? The luxury department store Harrods is flogging cherries for £1.69 each. The famous London shop has the dangly fruit priced at £165 a kilo, with a punnet weighing 508 grams and containing around 50, costing £83.82. Staff say the grower in San Francisco is rated the world's best, but aghast punters say the fruits are way too expensive. So the cherries came from San Francisco. Just one cherry costs about the same as a small pot from Lidl, and a kilo at Tesco works out at £12.50. Harrods floor shop assistant Jen Ramirez said the exorbitant cost was down to the cherry's unique sweetness. Okay, yeah, well, they can keep their unique sweetness. Now, here's another story about a 100-year-old refugee. Hang on a minute. I'm going to stop a minute while I crackle the paper a bit. This is actually a very interesting story. Walter Bingham played a part in some of the 20th century's most momentous chapters, and his story is still not finished at the grand old age of 100. Here he is. Here he is. I'm worried about the microphone. When I get behind the newspaper, it does make a big difference to the sound. Okay. After the horror of being a Holocaust refugee, he vowed to live life to the full. He fulfilled his dream of skydiving at 95, learnt how to fly, and appeared as a wizard in 3 Harry Potter movies. Walter also happens to be the world's oldest working journalist and shows no signs of slowing down despite his age. On a good day, I feel like I'm still in my 40s, he says. He got to England before the rest of his family was rounded up by the Nazis. And he took part in the Normandy landings during World War II and helped nail one of Hitler's right-hand men. I suppose because he spoke German. They needed people who spoke German for, questioning, that sort of thing. It was a poignant moment for Walter, who, while working for British intelligence, that's the German, came face to face with Hitler's top man in Europe, Joachim von Ribbentrop. Sitting across the table from the man who persuaded Germany's wartime allies to hand over Jews for extermination, he asked him, "What did you know about the Holocaust?" Walter said, "He was good looking and spoke good English." Yeah, he'd spent a lot of time in England, von Ribbentrop. I asked him, "What can you tell me about the final solution?" And he said, "I don't know anything about that. That was all the Führer." I could have wrung his neck. Walter was a 10-year-old Polish Jew living in Karlsruhe, Germany, near the French border, when Hitler rose to power in 1933. He recalls watching book burnings in a nearby park and seeing Hitler drive past his home in a motorcade. Over the next 3 years, as anti-Semitism grew, Walter was subjected to extreme bullying at school. He was spat on, called dirty stinking Jew, and forced by teachers to sit at the back of the class away from the Aryan children. Sounds sort of familiar now, doesn't it? Eventually, his parents sent him to a Jewish school run from a dilapidated building in the nearby town of Mannheim in southwest Germany. I've been to all of these places. It was a move that would save his life. When the Germans started rounding up Jewish men and came to arrest his father, Sigmund, a printer, Walter was 33 miles away at school. His dad would later perish in the Warsaw Ghetto, one of around 1,500 Karlsruhe Jews who died during the Holocaust. Walter's mum, Sophie, arranged for him to be sent to Britain on what became known as the Kindertransport Programme. The British government allowed around 10,000 Jewish children to escape to the UK, but would not take in their parents. So Walter was put on a train at Karlsruhe station. He said, "I had no idea whether I'd see my mother again, but I was 15, so I knew why I was going. The little ones on the train had no idea what was happening. They thought they were being sent away for punishment. Many were crying, 'Mummy, Mummy,' at the windows." One friend later told me how he pushed his baby's pram to the station, then pushed it home empty. It saved lives, but it was terribly cruel to separate parents from children. On arriving in Britain, Walter was housed with other refugees in Gritch Castle in Abergele, Conwy. You Welsh people, sorry if I got that wrong. Where he spent 3 years with other Jewish children. It was a lovely castle from the outside, but inside it was totally dilapidated, with no electricity or real sanitation. One day we were told that war had broken out, and that was that. So in 1944, he was in his 20s, joined the British Army as a member of the 3rd Wessex Territorials, part of the Allied invasion of Normandy, landing on Juno Beach as an ambulance driver. Walter's 103 Brigade were involved in the battle for Hill 112, an important strategic stronghold. In one mission, Walter's ambulance was knocked out by German fire, wounding his group and killing another officer. But he braved gunfire to save wounded soldiers and was later awarded the Medal for Bravery in the Field by George VI. Also, he got the Légion d'honneur. As a German speaker, Walter knew he could do more to help the war effort and was moved to the Supreme Allied Command. He worked as a document specialist, analysing captured German documents. Then transferred to London, where he was trained in counterintelligence at a secret office in Oxford Circus. So if you remember, Le Carré wrote a series of spy novels in which there was a government department. It was modelled on MI6, but it wasn't called MI6. It was referred to as the Circus. And that was because it was near Oxford Circus, or in Oxford Circus. So that would have been a reference to that. He said there was a big department store and under the roof was a secret office. When the war ended, Walter was sent to the Nazis' offices in Hamburg to find paperwork that helped prove members of the regime took part in the Holocaust. Anyway, I'm not reading the whole thing, through the Red Cross, he was finally reunited with his mum Sophie, who'd been deported from a German home in the early 40s and was working in labour camps. It says here, before ending up in Copenhagen. He said when he left her, he was a child, and then he was a young man in uniform, and he felt a bit awkward. Post-war, he got a job in journalism, and he owned a nappy factory, but it went out of business in the mid-60s with the arrival of disposable nappies. Apart from that, a friend joked he should start modelling after he grew a long beard, and Walter got an agent and appeared in non-speaking roles as a wizard in 2 of the Harry Potter films. And there's a picture of him here. There. Again, I don't know whether I can find this online or not. You know, this newspaper thing takes me a lot of time, because it's not only just reading the paper, but it's finding the stuff online as well to show you, so it's more clear. Now there's a couple of pages with recipes, and then there's the crossword and various puzzles, and Mystic Meg. Well, I'm not going to be reading horoscopes right now. And then, gosh, Lithuanian capitalist best value foreign break. Okay, Lithuania sounds good. And then there's a lot of adverts and stuff. All right, well, I think that's about it. There's a gardening section, of course, as I said. There's more adverts. Sport. Diesel car owners, you could claim up to £10,000 in compensation. Yeah, all right. Here we are. More sport, more sport, more sport, more sport, more sport, more sport, and more sport. All right, well, there you are. A quick romp through the sun. Now I've got to get into the internet looking for the bits that that will help elaborate on what I just read. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm, or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com, and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.